Greetings to everyone. Today's reading portion is from Book of Job, chapters 17 to 20. In Job 17, Job continues expressing deep despair and feels that his life is nearing its end. He believes his friends lack understanding and calls them mockers instead of comforters. Job feels trapped in suffering and sees no hope for vindication in this life. He describes the grave as his only resting place and feels cut off from any future joy. Spiritually, Job's words reflect the struggle of faith under extreme suffering. Even though he feels abandoned, he still speaks to God, showing that faith persists even in darkness. This chapter highlights the tension between human pain and divine silence. It reminds us that faith is not always confident. It can also be questioning and broken. In today's life, we learn that emotional pain can make even strong believers feel hopeless. Not all advice from others bring comfort. Sometimes people misunderstand our struggles. It teaches us to be compassionate listeners rather than quick judges. Even in despair, continuing to reach out to God is an act of faith. In Job 18, Bildad responds harshly, accusing Job of speaking foolishly. He describes in vivid details the fate of the wicked, saying that they will be trapped, terrified, and ultimately destroyed. Bildad implies that Job's suffering is proof that he is wicked. His speech lacks empathy and focuses more on judgment than comfort. This chapter reveals a rigid and incomplete understanding of God's justice. Bildad believes suffering is always a direct punishment for sin. Spiritually, it warns us against assuming we fully understand God's ways. It also shows how truth, when delivered without love, can become harmful. We learn the danger of judging others based on their circumstances. Not all suffering is a result of personal sin. It reminds us to avoid harsh words, especially when someone is already hurting. Compassion and humility are essential when supporting others. In Job 19, Job responds with deep anguish, feeling rejected by friends and even by God. He describes how everyone has abandoned him, leaving him isolated. Yet, in the midst of pain, he makes a powerful declaration: I know that my Redeemer lives. This statement reflects a sudden shift from despair to hope. This chapter is one of the strongest experiences of faith in the book. Job affirms his belief in a living Redeemer despite his suffering. Spiritually, it points us towards hope beyond present pain, even towards resurrection and restoration. It shows that true faith can arise even from deep despair. Even when life feels completely broken, hope is still possible. Trust in God and do not depend on circumstances, but on His nature. This chapter teaches us to hold on to faith even when everything else falls. It also reminds us to stand firm in hope even when others abandon us. In Job 20, Zophar speaks next, emphasizing that the joy of the wicked is short-lived. He describes how the wicked may prosper briefly but will ultimately face destruction. Zophar assumes that Job's suffering is due to hidden sin. His speech is intense and filled with warnings about judgment. Zophar's words reflect a partial truth. Evil does not last forever. However, his implication is flawed because he wrongly accuses Job. Spiritually, this teaching that knowing truth is not enough. Applying it correctly matters. It also reminds us that God's timing and justice are beyond human understanding. We must be careful not to misapply spiritual truth to judge others. Life is more complex than simple cause and effect explanation. It encourages us to teach God's justice without becoming self-righteous. Patience and humility are necessary when dealing with life's mysteries. Points to ponder. When I go through suffering, do I become like Job or like his friends? Do I truly believe in hope beyond present pain, like Job's declaration of a living Redeemer? May God bless us all. Amen.